Alrighty, we'll call the meeting to order. First item, overview of Zoom meeting operations procedures, rules for participation. Mute your microphone until recognized by one of us. And everybody should be fairly familiar with that by now. Public forum. Opportunity for citizens not on the agenda to briefly share comments or concerns. And I believe we have one.
He's signing in.
He's signing in. All right. Anyone else?
I do.
Go ahead, Perry.
Well, I've been trying to get on the agenda to get in here anyways, but I didn't realize you could just walk in. Just kind of, I don't know.
Walk in as long as it takes less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I have right-of-way issues and boundary line setback issues down on Burpee Road by the storage, Bristol Stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
They got in violation of Act 250 because they didn't get their Act 250. So they got in violation. So we went to mediation, and we went down to the site, and we, and they proceeded to show what they were doing, and without showing that I had a right of way to. So they were told they couldn't build on the right of way. There's a concrete wall built there now. And I tried to get it stopped, through the regular channels with Chris and whatever. Nothing happened. So now the wall's built in the right of way without my consent. Plus, there's a pond of stormwater, yep, pond that's butted up to the town highway, where there should be setback on that, and then my boundary line, which follows the old Bristol Railroad up through there. The setbacks are supposed to be 50 feet, and I don't have only 18 feet between that pond and my boundary line. That's a boundary line, not the right of way issue. They were told in mediation that you couldn't build on that right of way, but they went and had another drawing made up, and I never got one. They kept it from me. And the drawings never had any measurements. And it was all, the state had their lady there, engineer, and she said it was all up to scale. So, but if you scaled it still didn't work. Nothing worked. Nothing was to any of the town laws. So so they went and built some other buildings where this all would have worked. Out of the right of way. I mean, the wall has nothing to do with these containment ponds. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were supposed to build it out of the right of way, and they just decided not to. They had another drawing made up, and it showed it in the right of way again. But the first drawing that they came up with in mediation did not show the right of way at all. So they were all kind of stunned when I was, they asked me what I was doing there, and I was saying, well, I have a right of way through there. I had a map. I got the map right here if you want to see it. But and then we had to go down there and show them, where the right of way was, and then they were supposed to draw up another drawing, and I never got it. And I know that's part of Act 250, and that's state.
I was going to ask you, there was a mediation with the state and the Act 250 permit.
The state was there.
Have you reached out to the state? Have you reached out to the state?
Reached out to the state, and all and yes, and constantly called her about the way that it was being done, and the pond, the containment ponds. It says right in the drawing that the containment ponds were supposed to be built before the building. So the buildings were built because that was where they should have been in the first place, because they would have been, you know, in compliance with all the town laws and setback rules and boundary line rules. You know, but they went and built the building, so they, you know,
had to put the containment pond someplace.
Right. Well, they built the building so they could say that we can't put them over there now because the building's in. You know, but they built the buildings and had them rented before the ponds were even built. Of course, the COVID was going on, and you know.
You're probably not gonna like my answer because I think it's outside of what we can do. It's actually 50.
I just don't understand why the pond could get built either by the town highway, right? I mean, adjoining the town highway with no abutments or anything. That, you know, it's just, you know, who's gonna end up in on a roof in there and
I mean, I know
possibly
kill. Where all this stuff is. Is the containment pond that one right next to the road?
It's right next to the
where
Bristol Railroad.
Where the retaining wall is, and
the end of the Bristol Railroad, where it crosses Burpee Road and the town highway.
There's one each side of the culvert, isn't there? There's a little one on the south side, and there's a little one.
Right, there's one on a little one that they built on the other side that isn't even on the plan. It's not even on the plan. That one is
outside of our scope.
And that one's in the town, but right on the town
right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe the zoning was at that time, it's changed, but it was 75 feet back.
For
setbacks on town highway.
For a structure.
In that zone.
For a structure.
For a structure?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So ponds, you can just dig them anywhere you want.
Can't dig them in the right of way, but
you can't build in the right of way either.
Right.
You know, it's
right. Because the setbacks are for buildings, structures.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no nothing about a pond. No safety issues about a pond.
Not to my knowledge.
Dug on the side of the.
Not to my knowledge, if it's outside of the right of way.
Mm-hmm.
But it still has to be set back off of everyone.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that either. When you talk
I mean,
to Chris,
it's still construction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's construction. You get a shovel.
What did Chris say when you talked to him?
Chris would never show up.
Show up to the meetings or just show up to meet or talk?
He never came to the meeting,
right.
the mediation meeting, or
which he wouldn't.
Yeah, he probably wasn't invited. You know,
but I talked to
what? I'm wondering where this is going.
I haven't.
What she wants? Where are we headed? What are you expecting from us? Is that your question, Valerie?
Right. I'm not seeing yet where this is a select board issue.
Well, the town makes up the laws on setbacks, and I mean, who's governing it? That's what I want.
Well, at this point,
who's supposed to be watching your neighbor
mm-hmm.
in violations and you know, rights?
First of all,
I mean, if I do it right, shouldn't everybody do it right?
Everybody's supposed to do it right.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
but because there's Act 250 involved, and I think that's where I would have to really say you have to push them to write a complaint. Usually they're pretty good about complaints if you.
Yeah, all the drawings that were submitted never had any measurements on there.
Well, that's where
it was all on scale, and that's what she would come back and say it's all on scale, but if you scale it with a golden rule, it still wasn't working. I mean, I don't know, you know, what was going on with the.
Basically,
I mean, you can get a couple feet off on scale, but you can't get 30 feet off or 15 feet. You know, it just doesn't. You know, And then it's common sense. You tape measures. They're using a tape measure instead of scale out in the field.
As long as the stormwater ponds aren't constructed in the right of way, it's unfortunate nothing to us. I mean, if there was
there is a right of way. It's the Bristol Railroad, and I have a right of way through there.
Your right of way, not our right of way.
Right.
We don't have a right of way. That's a
boundary line there on that.
That's a
state. I mean, the state would have issued a permit saying this is what you are entitled to do. If they're not in compliance with that permit, then that is who you have to submit a complaint to. And they have to, they're the ones that have to enforce it. I mean, if they didn't build where it's supposed to be built, then that's the state.
And if it's
they built it to where their plan shows it, but it's nothing to do with any setback rules or any town, laws.
But
when you gotta get, all of us could go out and draw something up, but don't we have to have our 25-foot setback or 50-foot setback or whatever it is in the town? It's different, but
not for dirt work. Not for dirt work. You can,
the setbacks are set for building purposes.
Yeah. For structures.
So
you can't do anything. They couldn't build a pond. They couldn't build a pond that dumped water onto your land if the water wasn't already going that way to begin with.
Changing, the direction of the water.
But as far as digging on their own property, I mean, I would say if it's in the right of way, there again, that's a civil issue. It's not a town issue.
I did my chance having attorney.
Yes, I did.
I would call you.
I did retain an attorney.
I would call.
Unfortunately, he wasn't the right attorney.
No.
He wasn't writing the right letters.
You might want to consult.
No, that's my next step, but I'm just trying to work my way up the ladder.
Yeah,
so,
no, I mean,
it took me this long to get here.
I think that's your next step because I think they have to pursue the state with the Act 250.
And then what about the building of the concrete wall into my right of way?
That I don't know. I mean, I don't.
I got a 50-foot right of way that's been issued to me before anything was built in the Bristol stormwater.
If I could interrupt again.
What's that?
If I could interrupt again. I haven't been able to hear all of this, but I think I got the gist of it. Has the person who I didn't catch the name, have you reached out to Rick Overkirk, who's the permit specialist for this district?
No, I haven't.
Act 250 and state permit specialist?
Yeah.
He's in Middlebury. No, he's in Rutland. My mistake.
I was going to say he's in Rutland. He's in Middlebury.
When they were building the buildings on the other side of the right of way, they would form them all up in the right of way every time. Every stinking time. The first one was 20 feet in the right. So, if
I can give you his number and you can call him and describe the situation to him, and he might be able to provide some assistance.
He can pull a permit too, correct?
Right. Yeah,
I think he would help with enforcement.
They're all online.
Yeah.
They're all online.
I have a number right here. If you have a pencil.
Go ahead.
802-282-6488. And it's Rick Overkirk.
64
permit specialist.
Yeah, 6488 or 6448.
6488.
6488.
And Rick
Overkirk.
Oh boy.
Overkirk. So, try him first so you don't have to get an attorney involved to find out.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. And we'll go from there.
We would have issued a permit for we would have issued a permit for the retaining wall, wouldn't we?
I don't believe
See,
so.
the retaining wall didn't even have to happen. It is just something they had drawn up by a, you know, local engineer, and they went with it, and they were informed that it didn't even have to go there. It could just be filled in with your rock, you know, or whatever. There was no wetland issues or anything. So it just could have been filled in, and that's what it was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be filled in, and the block wall was supposed to be out of the right of way. They were told at that point.
Out of your right.
Out of my right of way. Right. I mean,
well, start with him.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Go
good
to
night.
Simon.
Okay.
Come on up where we can see you.
FYI, Joel will be here shortly.
Okay.
Okay. Where you want my address?
No.
Once you speak, the camera will turn to you and you'll show up there. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
I don't have to.
I am William Moran. I am a I am a scout from Troop 543 right here in Bristol.
Didn't happen.
And I was hoping to
All right, thank you.
ask permission for the scout for our troop to do a cleanup on November 11th at the Veterans Memorial here on the Green, and then have a reading of the veterans' names while up there at the memorial. So yeah.
So what do you mean by clean up?
I think we were just like remove the leaves, possibly clean the
Grass in the cracks.
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Anything that has to be done, really, we can do. So if that was all.
Valerie, they don't need a permit or anything for that, do they?
This is a repeat of what we did last year.
Well, it is a public assembly of some sort.
What did we do last year to give you permission to do it?
I think they went through the rec department.
Actually, we came through the Selectboard.
Yeah,
My 12-year-old at the time presented via Zoom to the Selectboard. It entails a cleanup for about 2 hours and then a public reading and a speech by Ronald Rose for the
Did we need a motion for that? It'd be clean.
Since you have it. I think last year they also went through the rec department, though, after coming to the select board.
Meredith, do you remember?
I think I do remember. Yeah, it was just an application, and it just said what time they were there and what time they were going to leave the park. And that I believe they used the bandstand to read off some names. So that's all. If it's the right venue that you guys did, then that's it. We just need a quick little application of what time you're in the park and what time you're leaving, and that you're going to be cleaning up the park.
We would fill out the application.
Then I don't believe you need a motion from us, but you have our blessing. I haven't heard anybody say you don't.
Right. According to the public assembly ordinance, that sounds like an event that the rec department can approve directly.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else under public forum? Seeing none, we'll move on. Department head roundtable. Meredith, we'll start with you.
Great. So just to follow up with Rooster Construction, I did talk to Chris earlier or later last week, and he is aware that he's going to organize the lift with the library work. So he'll keep us posted on that. And just had a phenomenal horse event at the horse ring. And it was, I would say, maybe 65 people were watching the horses demonstrate the riders demonstrating what they can do with their horses. So that was pretty cool. And then we're just getting events together. Our next big event is Pumpkins in the Park on Saturday the 30th. But other than that, we're just kind of going through and just cleaning up our offices and going through papers and just kind of decluttering things. That's it for the rec department.
Okay, any questions for Meredith? Bruce.
So calls for service have been steady. Our new database system, we ran into a couple of issues, so we're back on the old database while they're trying to resolve those. And
Can you say that was it, or
did you freeze, or did you say you were done?
yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Well, it just kind of stopped and it was quiet. So, all right. Any questions for Bruce? Alrighty. Brett.
Good evening, everyone. The only thing I wanted to put out a reminder about was the upcoming 5-town fire department food drive, the annual food drive. The date of October 23rd has been chosen for this event. I know they're having their first planning meeting this evening, but that will be from 9 to noon. That is a Saturday, where each fire department from the 5 towns will be staffing their respective fire stations to collect food for the Have a Heart food shelf, which is for the 5 towns. That's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Brett? Alrighty. Eric's on vacation.
What?
Yeah. I think he's in North Carolina, South Carolina, somewhere. He went down to the sun. So, alrighty. I missed review agenda for additions or removals. Are we all set? Was there anything we needed to add or not that you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Good, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
Regular business. Consider new West Street crosswalk design and cost options. Otter Creek Engineering.
So I think that's me.
That's
Yeah.
Robert.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Here, take my chair.
Good evening. I'm Robert with Otter Creek Engineering, and I'm just here mostly to explain what we did and answer any questions. Essentially, we went out and measured the site distance requirements at the firehouse pertaining to a crosswalk in that location, and we presented a couple of different options.
Now, can you throw that up on the screen?
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
Sure.
You might have a hard copy, but.
So while she's looking for it, I think the first option that we looked at is essentially an extension of the sidewalk that's coming up and going straight across the road. That's where pedestrians are going to want to inherently travel to anyway. So if it's safe there, it's reasonable to assume that that's a good place to cross. And it would also involve the least amount of infrastructure and cost the least amount for the town. So in short, we went through an analysis at different speeds. I tried to provide you guys with as much data as possible. But in my opinion, that location meets all of the requirements for the Agency of Transportation. It meets all reasonable criteria at the design speed. And we included some very conservative assumptions related to how people would react, what the road conditions might be, and under all circumstances, it's an appropriate place for a crosswalk. I felt obligated to look at a second option for you. So we looked at moving it to the east about 68 feet, which would obviously improve the crosswalk location from a site distance perspective, but not necessarily from an actual location. I think people are creatures of habit. They tend to take the path of least resistance. And I think personally moving it down, like as depicted on that figure, could result in people just trying to cross without the crosswalk to get over to the rec park towards the high school. So in my opinion, it's safer to go straight across, which is the figure prior, and would cost the least amount of money. And we didn't identify any permits or real drainage issues there or grade issues to make that work. And One of the things that I did look at is whether or not it was appropriate to add other traffic enhancements. So traffic enhancements include things like the pedestrian sign in the street that you'll see, rapid flashing beacons are sometimes appropriate. And basically that piece right there essentially identifies that at 30 miles an hour or less, an in-street sign could be an appropriate enhancement in that location. And at 40 miles an hour, you could consider the flashing beacons. And I don't know if you've ever seen those or
the ones that are like that by the bank here.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one of the things with that, and I mentioned it in the analysis, is just those are intended to really catch people's attention. Mm-hmm. And what happens when they're placed everywhere is that they become less effective. You know, you don't want to
at every single intersection, people don't pay any attention.
Exactly. And so that's why this V-Trans guidance is here. That's why we use other technical standards to help us decide where it's appropriate. Because what we don't want to do is put them everywhere so that the general public that's driving is just kind of jaded to it and really just not aware of what's happening. So, but that being said, I don't think there's any other crosswalks nearby. I think there is a potential for people to be driving faster around that corner, and it's not unreasonable to consider them there in that location. It's really up to you guys on what you'd like to do. But from a strictly technical perspective, it's appropriate and safe to have a crosswalk there.
So we should have just done it.
I did say that. It's always good to have it looked at. I mean, I think it really, with all the active construction that's there, you know, I put my best guess at a cost estimate, but I think that it's in the town's best interest to talk with a contractor who's currently working there and get a change order price, and we can provide a plan. But I think fundamentally it comes down to some line striping, a little bit of sidewalk work, some ADA accessible ramps and detectable warning surfaces that are needed. And then obviously the signage and things right now, the pricing is a little up and down, I should say, with COVID, you know, so I think it makes the most sense to just ask the contractor for the price before you go. But I put together what I thought was an appropriate estimate.
Well, so from the West Street sidewalk, right in front of the fence of the rec field, from there to the edge of the road, it's not a steep slope. So
it's not too steep, correct?
It'll be within the guidelines of the EDA.
Correct. Yep. And we collected all the survey data to put together that actual plan with the appropriate grades. And there's a catch basin right there with a little bit of rework. You know, the drainage will certainly ensure to go in that. And I don't see it as creating an ice issue. The water does run right down the
catch basin on the west side towards the school.
Yes. Yep. And that's the way
it's quite a ways up there, isn't it? It's up by the old animal hospital.
Can you go down to the first one? The first plan.
I probably didn't include it because we did a detailed survey. But actually it's probably halfway between that car. You can almost see it halfway between the car and where we call out ADA compliant ramp. There's a little dark circle right there. Yep, that's it. And I think with a little bit of regrading, we can make sure that everything goes here. The survey that we did kind of picked up that the water runs right down the edge of the road, and it does need a little bit of dish work, encouragement.
So the ADA ramp on the west side or north side, or the north side, is there going to be another one on the south side as well?
Yes, there will.
Okay, you just don't have it showing down.
Correct.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah. I called it out on the other side because I knew there was grade concerns over there. Okay. But elevation wise, it's all compliant.
Yeah.
And the other side's very flat there.
Well, that drainage you said right here, does that come across here and go down?
No,
that ties towards the west.
East.
Goes east. Okay.
So should be another one goes over at Martin's.
There should be another one. Should there be another one then over?
There is. There's one.
Is there one there by
us?
Okay.
There's.
I thought there was. I'm 100% sure.
4 or 5 of them down through there. There's one up by the corner, I believe.
And we were fortunate. It rained a lot in October. We were able to go up and take a look at it when it was raining to get an idea if there was other issues going on. And I'm comfortable that the water, with a little bit of encouragement, will go in there.
Yeah. Well, if you're raising, putting a walk across the ditch, we should be able to get it to go back if it's only 10, 15 feet.
Exactly.
Robert, one of the next steps for the select board to decide which alignment they prefer and whether or not it should be electrified?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, Valerie.
And then once that decision is made, Otter Creek Engineering would develop a more detailed design plan that can be provided to a contractor for construction and also to Don Weston for cost estimating?
That's correct. Yep.
Is there anywhere there that we can get power without a separate meter?
Say that again?
Those actually operate on solar.
I know, but the ones we put down here, we didn't want to, we went with shore power because we didn't want them running out. Yeah, in the middle of winter, we didn't want them not working.
And we tied in those to the street lights.
Yeah. But we don't have any power even close there.
Not that I'm aware of. There is a utility pole just to the east.
Right, but it'd be another meter. It'd be another.
Yep.
It'd be another meter cost. Yeah.
Plus road excavation, probably.
Or there, we were worried.
Yeah,
somebody down here, the looks too down on Main Street of a big solar.
How does the fire?
That's a solar.
So when you guys have a call, what do they do? Hit
they have a button in the truck.
Send that solar.
Yeah.
And that's worked pretty well. Okay. Yeah, actually.
Unless there are specific issues that people know about with solar ones not working, I'd say go with solar just because of the cost and the fact that we'd have to pull power, get a meter, and run across the road and dig up the road. Whereas with solar, we don't have to do that. That seems like a better option. I mean, I see solar ones in numerous towns throughout Vermont, and so I can't imagine they are having problems, or maybe they are. I don't know if you know any specific speaker.
I don't. I just know that power from the power companies there 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And, and being that we're going to have a housing development there and
yeah.
Where people walk into work, if we had the option, but yeah. I don't think it's worth putting a separate meter on a pole to do it.
No, but I do think this is one of the. I agree with Robert. We wouldn't want those flashing things down on every crosswalk in town. But down here, once the 20 unit apartments in and then the jobs down in there, I think this would be a great spot for our flashing signs.
So I'd entertain a motion to get this underway here.
I have a quick question of Robert.
Sure.
With the solar powered flashing lights, if under certain weather conditions, the solar component fails and the lights don't flash and a pedestrian encounters a vehicle and has a problem, are you aware of any kind of liability issue for the failure of the lights flashing, even though every other component of the crosswalk would be, meet all the other codes? Are you aware of anything like that?
I'm not. That's a very good question, Valerie. I'm not aware of any other requirement. I think you'd still be able to provide the minimum distances required. And I think the analysis that we did kind of concluded that, conservatively, there's plenty of stopping time there. One of the things that people often forget is that during, snow and ice conditions, there's not a tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic and there's not a lot of vehicles moving at a high rate of speed. So often those factors are ignored, but I think the analysis shows that it's okay. And I'm not aware of any requirement if there was a failure in that situation.
Well, the law requires you to stop for people in the crosswalk anyway.
Whether it's flashing or not.
Yeah, whether it's flashing or not. We're just looking at flashing as a way to help alert people that there's somebody in the crosswalk. It'll be similar to Bruce's speed sign down on East Street when there's snow on it. Overnight, it probably won't work that day. But that's the nature of the beast.
Right, don't they have batteries? So it's ideally charging and then it's working and then recharging, right? It's not just like an on-demand solar thing. So hopefully, if you get the angle right, it should work.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. I had a question too. I'd like to see both the RFB and the in-street pedestrian sign, because I think they're both useful and we have them on almost every crosswalk in town. My only issue, and it's a question for Brett, in terms of placement, you're not placing it on the crosswalk, you're placing it either side of it. Is that an issue in terms of fire trucks getting out of there? And is it something where it becomes an impediment to that in terms of an emergency call?
Ian, are we speaking about the those fluorescent signs that are typically on the yellow line? Is that what we're talking about?
In the middle of the street, so it'd be either side
Right.
of the crosswalk. But it's something that's there that could be hit by a large vehicle coming out at speed of your driveway. So I'm just curious if that's an impediment to you guys.
It's not an impediment because it's not going to stop us. I don't mean that. You know,
You just might run over it.
Hey, I'm very much in favor of a crosswalk and doing everything we can to get the attention of the vehicular traffic that cruises down the street daily, because it is a very dangerous place. You know, with the rec park, you have the school, you know, that traffic very significant at certain times of day, and people are doing 40 miles an hour when they come up the hill around the corner, and you know it's usually Martins before they're maybe getting down to 30. And I know I'm not telling Bruce anything he doesn't know, but back to your original question about the signs. I think it's a great idea. And is there that possibility it could get hit? Well, on that crosswalk, Ian, no, because by a fire truck, because when we're exiting westbound, we're not coming near it. And when we're exiting eastbound, I have very good drivers and they're not going to cross over that yellow line. So,
okay. Great. Well, that's good to hear, because I'd like to see both, and I think they both would be, as you say, would really help in terms of the speed. But I just didn't want to create something where it becomes a difficulty in terms of you guys exiting. So that's great to hear.
Okay, wait,
not at all.
I need clarification. So you're saying you want to have both the flashing lights and one of those signs in the center of the road that'll tip over if somebody does hit it?
Yes. Yes. I think in that particular area, I think, just as Brett described, the speed at which people come over the top of the hill, you know, people aren't at 30 by the time they get the crosswalk. There might be a 35, they're probably at 40 because they come right over the top of the hill. And the sign's right there at the top of the hill. And so I think anything that we can do as a town to alert people of pedestrian traffic coming across there with a new crosswalk, because obviously the flashing signs help a lot, especially at nighttime. But I think a center of the road thing should be on it, just because it's a busy main street. We have it on North Street, we have it on West and East, we have them all over town, and we should do it for here as well. The only place we actually don't have one, I think, is the crosswalk in the middle of the town by the National Bank, and that's because our street is so narrow there. I don't think it actually needs one. Or no, do we have one? We used to have one. Maybe we haven't put it out this year.
I don't think we have one at Maple Street, that crosswalk.
Okay. But I think you know, we try to put them on as many crosswalks, especially with two-way traffic, as possible. And I think given the amount of foot traffic that will hopefully be traveling here, I think it benefits us to use both options.
So we're going to have signs that say crosswalk with a pedestrian with a pointing arrow. We're going to have the flashing signs, and then the thing in the center, the one in the center. That's what we're talking about. I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
A removable one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would just be added to our collection that Eric and crew puts out every year.
You may have a problem there when the industrial park gets going, because a 53 box trailer coming from the east may not be able to turn, or coming out of Firehouse Drive and going east would probably hit that sign. I know that's why the one at the corner of North and Spring, Kevin used to, and I think Bruce does too, they slide it down towards the library, maybe 20 feet. So when the school buses come off Spring Street in the afternoon, they can turn left, or in the morning, because it's hard to turn.
And they occasionally, going into Shaw's,
That's why the one at the bank is not there, because the Shaw's trucks keep coming out of the bank, coming out of Shaw's, coming down the hill by the bank and going west. Can't make that turn without hitting the sign.
Okay. Well, let's if we can, I'd like to recommend we go with 2. If it does become an issue with the building that's being built and the trucks that might be going to that building, we can revisit perhaps later on.
Sure. I agree with that.
Yeah, and the in-street sign that we're talking about doesn't have to be something that Don Weston bids on. That's something we can do.
That's right.
In-house.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
Make a motion that we go with the first option, straight across. And we have Otter Creek do the design and price out.
I mean, the design for the slope,
Yeah, right?
and all that, and cement and the slope and all that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then and with the addition of the RRFB.
Right. That was all part of that. Yeah.
Second.
Further discussion.
Been seconded?
Hi,
Joel did. I just have one more question for you both. We don't need to get state permit for this.
To the best of my knowledge, everything's happening inside the town's.
Well, I know technically, but
They own the street.
I confirmed it. I confirmed it with V-Trans.
I mean, there's literally a sign when you enter Bristol that says "End of State Highway." So I don't think the state has much jurisdiction when there's literally a sign that's right there that says "End of State Highway."
We can't have a parade without their permission.
right. We can't do a coin drop without a permit.
Well, that's because we're closing the street, right?
Yes.
No, we don't close it.
For the parade and for PODOC. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the coin drop doesn't go to them. All right. Further discussion. Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Robert.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So I am expecting then that this will be on the next select board agenda to review the costs and decide how to proceed, either with going with Don Weston to add it as a contract amendment or change order, or if depending on how things look, if you want to do it a different way. So I expect that'll be on the October 25th agenda.
You have 2 weeks.
I'll get her everything she needs before the end of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Consider Green Mountain Engineering Step 2 contract amendment for the Bristol Pine Street water line replacement project.
Hopefully folks had a chance to review the proposed amendment. Alan's line, more info.
So if I may do a brief introduction, this was the last time I attended your meeting. We were waiting for the preliminary engineering report approval from Willie at the state, and we did receive that shortly after I met you folks. That's what allowed us to put the amendment for final design together. And I think at the time I had suggested that we might be going out there a little early ahead of this amendment, so make sure we get the survey done before the weather turns foul. Fortunately, the weather has not turned foul, but we all actually have already done the survey for this, so we're ahead of the game a little bit, but wanted to get the amendment in front of you as soon as I could. This amendment gets you through final design. You'll have final design plans ready to put out to bid, hopefully this winter, and to do a bond vote with an updated cost estimate. The state curve, based on the cost estimate that we're using and the funding that you've applied for, would allow for approximately $45,000 in engineering costs, and our estimate is $33,000. So we're well under the state curve for this phase of this project.
Alan, can you tell us if the design plans will include drainage, stormwater management?
I guess it depends on the how extensive those improvements are. We haven't really been aware of what drainage issues you're hoping to take care of. If it's adding a few dry wells down through there, that's not an issue at all. If we're going to put a storm drain the entire length of Pine Street, I did not anticipate that.
And that would involve a whole bunch more permitting, wouldn't it, as far as where it discharged?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'd have to go up with a discharge point off-site to be able to run those pipes too.
Joel, do you have any thoughts?
He ran off, listened to his pager.
Oh, I think we had talked in the past about modest dry well installations.
That was my understanding.
Go ahead, Valerie. I heard you mention my name.
Stormwater.
Stormwater over there. I have spoke with one neighbor where it comes down on their, into their property, into their business, and he's willing to work with us so the water can, and that won't be dry wells probably, Alan, that will probably be more of a stormwater piping. But, you know, when it comes off Taylor Avenue, it goes right down Jackman Drive and right down through all the way to the big boulders that Peaker had to put in a big ravine that they lost a few years ago. And he's willing to work with us and have it discharged on his land. I know that's another permitting spot, but that.
Yeah, I guess it depends. If we're not creating any additional impervious area, we've gotten that out before. And if we're not reconstructing the road, we've gotten a waiver from any stormwater permitting. But it's something we could definitely look into.
Yeah. I mean, if you're willing sometime, Alan, you want to get together and maybe Peaker and I and you and with yep. Jackman's of Bristol and look it over.
Okay.
Give the board then a little preview and Valerie can sit in, most definitely sit in on it too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Like I said, I didn't do any large piping projects, but if this isn't going to require a state stormwater permit, I think we can cover it.
Because they want to pave their yard and do some improvements in their yard, but until the water stops coming off the street, they can't hold their yard together.
Right. Well, maybe that a dry well further up in the drainage system would help as well, perhaps going across Pine Street. But that's something we could look at.
Alan, would the addition of that kind of aspect of the design plan, would that be within the scope of the water funding, the water line funding?
No, only where it conflicted with the water line. So anything like that outside of the, let's say, 7-foot-wide trench, which the state allows you to utilize as disturbed area, anything outside of that 7 or 9 foot area would not be eligible for funding.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we're going to end up paving half the road on our dime.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's possible that as we get further along in this project and stormwater, more stormwater details come to light and perhaps a particular plan takes shape, that we can find additional grant funding for the actual construction to supplement the water funding.
I know Bristol Works did the same type thing that we're talking about putting on the west end of the park when they did their parking area to catch all their water and take care of that so it doesn't come across the road.
That's the one by the woodworking place.
Yeah.
That big dry well.
No, it's not a dry well. It's their, I don't know, what do they call those, Alan? The dome.
Infiltration chambers.
There you go. Been so long since I've done it, I don't even know the names.
Alan, based on this conversation, does anything need to be changed in the proposed amendment?
No.
Okay.
What's your pleasure? Everybody's nodding. Somebody's got to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we have Green Mountain Engineering do step 2 of the contract for Bristol Pine Street water line replacement project.
So you're saying the town execute amendment number 1?
Yeah. So I don't. I've been out 2 weeks. So I can't see that.
Yeah.
And just to refresh your memories, we're trying to achieve a 90% design plan by December 1st. That's why we're sort of pushing this along as quickly as we can in order to qualify for the funding that we've applied for.
Yes, you're just very pushy, Alan. We know you.
He doesn't have any other work. This is
Now, Alan, also just to clarify for me, do we need to submit an additional loan application, or is it basically already approved?
That's a good question. We've only submitted a loan application for preliminary to this point, so we'd have to amend that loan application.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question, because I think I'm a little lost on this. We're on the state's priority list for the $940,000 funding. We're not going to get $940,000, but that's what we're hoping for.
Right. We don't know the specifics of the loans at this point. Right now, they're saying they're basically paying for planning of engineering and final design. And then you're going to get the regular rates, whatever those might be, 3% or 2% for 30 years, whatever their current rate is. But we all know there's more money coming to the state of Vermont. And I was in a meeting for an hour on Thursday that talked about all these funding programs receiving and splitting up about $1 billion. I have no idea how they're going to split that up yet, but I do know that the DWSRF program is one of the programs that's going to receive a heck of a lot of money.
Okay.
Specifics. And they could not tell us those specifics on Thursday.
So we'll have to reapply for that additional funding whenever that's available.
You're on the list already, so possibly yes. If they change the terms, I guess you might.
Okay.
And Steve Palmer had recommended that this be a regular agenda item at least once a month. Select board.
I think Ian, did you second that, Ian?
I did.
Okay. That's what. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can you repeat
Alan, do
the
you
motion?
recommend that this be on the agenda for the second meeting in November?
Yeah, that'd be about right, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Meeting in November be just a few days before it's due, Alan.
That's right.
Can you repeat the motion? I missed part of it.
Joe made the motion for the town to accept and execute the amendment number 1 to the Green Mountain Engineering contract.
Good, Tasha?
For the Pine Street water line replacement, if you want that information.
All right. Consider request by Bristol Conservation Commission to install a memorial boulder at Eagle Park to honor Pete Domenico. Is that why you're here, Dave?
I think that's why I'm here. I'm not on the Conservation Commission.
Dave Sharp, is that why you're here?
Yes, that's why I'm here.
There he is. I know, we got 2 days.
He's not on the Conservation Commission.
I wasn't planning to present on behalf of the Conservation Commission, but I'm here to support the notion.
Is there anybody here to talk about?
So what I think Dave and I are both here to answer any questions that you have. I went to the Conservation Commission and got their approval for what we'd like to do in September. And I saw that is in the minutes. But Valerie thought that we should present to you also so that you know what our hopes are and what we'd like to do and get your blessing, hopefully.
So do they have an idea what this sign? When I leave this
I did read kind of where it was going, but I'm not sure. So there's a sign now that says Memorial Park. Is it going somewhere? You plan to put it somewhere near there? Was that the thought?
Eagle Park.
I mean, sorry,
Eagle Park.
Yeah, I don't know if we've been up there recently, but there's actually a stake in the little grassy area where the kiosk is that the Rose put in for surveying. And that is very close to where we would like to place this engraved stone in honor of Pete. We looked at a lot of options, some on private property, some on town property. And there was a group of 6 or 8 of us who were friends of Pete through the New Haven River Anglers, through River Watch, through other conservation things and just friends and neighbors like Pete and several other neighbors who are involved in this. We picked this spot because it's an area that was dear to Pete. He was very much involved in
the platform. Yeah, he was the driver of the platform. He was the driver to make sure that the platform stayed accessible,
right.
and yeah.
And the exact spot where this boulder, the size of the stone is approximately 2.5 by 3 by 3.5 feet. So it's not a lot out of the same size as a lot of the big boulders that are laid out to keep people off the guide. But if it would lie just inside the path as it goes around going past the kiosk, and then directly past it, you would see the garden, the platform, the river, and Mount Airy.
Okay, here's my question. Since I'm not really sure where they're putting this, with the work they're going to be doing on the platform, do we want to wait to put this in until they're done? Will it be out of the way? I mean, I just don't want it to get ruined, have them put it up there and then it get ruined.
Or have to get moved.
Right.
Picked up and moved, yeah.
Well, if the Conservation Commission is the one asking for this, the Conservation Commission is the one overseeing the who's going to be overseeing the repair work. So I think I would leave that to their discretion.
Okay. We have to consider that. And it doesn't seem at this point that it would be a problem. And as far as the town's involvement, this stone, this large boulder, is sitting right behind the town shed. And apparently, it's had to be moved several times. Kind of in the way.
Have you checked to see if that particular boulder can be lettered? Because
yes.
It can, okay.
Yes, Ed Germon, who lives very close to the
across the road.
Right across the road. Ed spent his career working in stone, working for Rock of Ages, doing things like this. So we've enlisted him as kind of our guide.
I just remember one time somebody was looking for memorial stone and they said it had to be a special stone. They went through all our stone walls on the farm to find one, and said it had to be a certain rock because they couldn't all be lettered.
Right. We looked at a lot of rocks, and then he found this one
right at home,
right in that
backyard.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that we allow the Conservation Commission to put the stone at the Eagle Park.
Second.
I'll second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is that rock the lifetime guarantee?
It does. It does. I don't know if that motion will. If I guess it's okay, but basically we've got volunteers that are going to have a trailer and a truck. The stone's going to be engraved and buried. It's going to be moved back and forth. I guess the Conservation Commission can certainly be overseeing it, but they're not really directly involved except for giving their approval at this point.
So you want us to make you in charge?
No. Conservation Commission, they'll be great.
That's an answer I figured I was going to get. Any further discussion?
Dave Sharp, anything you want to say or add, or we got everything?
Well, I would just say it's it's a very thoughtful thing to do. The money's all been raised privately, individuals, and tools that were in Pete's shop were sold, and the family had the proceeds go to this project. And there'll be money left over in the Riverwatch coffers to help maintain quality control or testing in the rivers of New Haven. Pete was such a huge contributor to the health of the environment in our community that I think this is really appropriate. And I thank the select board for their approval.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Right. All right. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't have to run off. You can stay. This is riveting stuff. Consider a plan for appointment of moderator.
So at the last meeting, the select board met in executive session to review potential candidates to be appointed as moderator, and the decision was not made, and instead it's back on the agenda tonight to come up with a plan.
I spoke to two people that we had talked about in executive session. We're on a short list, so to speak. Nothing in ballpoint pen, and I did ask them both, and they said they would get back with me. I've been out of town for a week, so I haven't had a chance to look them up today, but I will before our next meeting.
Yeah, I think that we probably ought to let it out to see what the interest is, and then have a group interview. Not necessarily the select board interview, and then come to us with a couple of final candidates, and then we can have them come in, meet them, and make our decision from there. Unless you want to spend the time to do all the interviews, but I don't think we
that many.
Well, I don't know that we're going to have that many either, but.
So
well,
do you think
it might be 3 then, based upon Joel's follow-up and another person who may be interested?
Right, but we have those 3 names have just come out of the circle of people who knew that that was getting done.
Right.
And people that we've asked. We haven't put out a formal invitation for a moderator.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to do that, do we have a description and responsibilities for that post?
That does exist. It hasn't been formed as an ad yet, but that can come together.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we don't have a long time. I mean, it's got to be a fairly speedy process because March will be here before we know it. So.
And yeah, for those who have decided that is going to be the moderator, they need to come up to speed on Robert's rules and understand what they need to do. So.
Is there a workshop, or didn't there used to be a workshop that was offered for new town moderators?
Yep, VLCT sponsors one every year, and it's very good. I've been to it at least a couple times.
That's what I thought.
We'll just let you be moderator and do your job. That'll work.
You guys have to be a registered voter in Bristol in order to be appointed or elected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Peter's suggestion of putting it out to the public. I think that's the right thing to do. It gives us a larger pool of people to hopefully pull from. And yeah.
Timeline?
No later, I would say, than December 1st.
That would have somebody picked?
Yes. So they can, because usually the LTC thing's in January for town meeting.
I was just going to say, do we know when that workshop is?
It's usually February.
Oh,
early February.
Fred told me it's late January, early February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we put out, I guess all I'm looking for is in our notice, when do we want to have our candidates by?
End of November.
We still need time for whoever's going to do the interviews to do the preliminary interviews, and then we need time for the 2 or 3 finalists to come before the board. So, I mean, you're not talking something that's going to happen overnight.
I would think that if we had somebody by
First of the year.
That gives us more time. So I would say if people get to Valerie their interest by November 15th, that gives time to interview and stuff.
Yeah, mid-November feels good.
And here again, we're only appointing them for this 1 year because it's an elected position.
1 year, right?
Only for the March town meeting. That's all.
But they actually almost have to be on the ballot for the next year, don't they?
They do, or anybody can be on the ballot for the next year. Let's say five, we pick
I'm
one,
no,
and the other four said, I want to run, so they can.
It's not just this year. It's the next year too, because if we put them on for this year, they're appointed just for the year
of March up till the end of March for March town meeting.
So March of 2023.
Right.
So they would be able to do town meeting that following year. Right. But then they would have to put themselves on.
I mean, let's say we had to play this out, 5 people applied, and we pick one, the other 4 wants to run, they can still run, get the signatures and run and be on it. The elected one will be for 2023.
So would they be on this year's ballot for 2023?
Correct.
I believe it would be the 2022.
Well,
I'm saying they'd be on the ballot for 2022 for the 2023.
They would be the moderator after town meeting is over, after 7 o'clock Tuesday night of elections.
Right.
The elected moderator would be elected for that year. We have a special town meeting.
That's what I was trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah, because in last year's town report, that we don't have a name in there because we didn't have one for this year, even though the town meeting was a little bit different.
Right.
Would be for.
They would be able to do this year's meeting, and then.
But we're going to have to have a candidate. We're going to have a candidate on the ballot this March.
Right.
At least one.
Right.
Hopefully the one we appoint, and anybody else who's interested.
Right.
After the first year, they might say, forget
it.
Right.
Yeah. So I think mid-November seems fine. That gives us a month to hopefully collect interested parties, and then go from there. How does that sound, Val?
Sounds good.
Do we want to do the preliminary interviews?
I think the board ought to really do
all of them.
Well, can we do can we do an evaluation?
We'll see how many we get, and we can.
How many we get, right?
We can evaluate them.
Who are you thinking?
I don't know.
I mean, if we want to interview people, I would say ask Fred. He's got the most experience in that position.
When does he leave to go south?
Yeah, December 15th, he tells me.
December 15th?
Friday. Tell him a week ago, Friday.
It would be great to have his input.
Yeah, I agree.
At least have him involved when we do the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd like to be, yeah.
I mean, I don't think they need to be. I don't think we need a half an hour or 15 minutes. We probably could get away with 5 or 10 minutes per person. If that's the case, then we could probably do it. But and I'm not expecting 24 people to apply.
Well, maybe now if you get 24 people, you might want to email us and say, well, you might want to reconsider.
So why don't we set a limit? Why don't we set a limit that we'll do and a tentative way to deal with it if we get more than that?
So if we get 5, we'll do it.
If we get 5, that's an hour. That's an hour.
Yeah.
Let's give them 10 minutes apiece.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. So if we get more than 5,
then we should have somebody else go through and drill down at the top 2 candidates or 3 candidates or whatever.
Valerie, Sharon, and Fred.
Which Sharon want?
I like it.
Doesn't.
I mean, Sharon's usually there taking notes.
Yeah, well,
minutes, so.
I mean, and she's gonna have. I mean, she's got an idea of how the meeting should run.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think we wait to see how many we're going to get first, and then
I'm the only thing I'm doing is making
just in case
precautions.
So five, play this out then. Five apply. We're going to interview all the 5 of us.
Yes.
6 apply. We're going to have 3 people break it down to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the math there?
Yep.
And with the 6,
you got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
Draw it down to 5. Throw one out.
No, I guess I should draw it down to
I'm
3.
just saying.
You know, if that gets 6,
we got another important more thing. I just honestly, we got a treasurer to get interview, and that's going to take some time. And then an assistant with the new treasurers, help out with an assistant to get an interview. I think the moderator's down on the list a little bit. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I guess more important things to.
So you're saying you want them to do all the interviews and not
No. So I want to wait and see by the 15th of November. When's our second meeting in November or first meeting in November, Valerie?
November 22nd.
That's the second one. If she tells us the 22nd, boy, I got 17 interviews, 17 people applied. Then we'll decide, okay, break it up.
So all I'm looking for is how we're going to break it up. If we're going to break it up, who's going to do the interview so that we have a plan. That's all I'm looking for is a plan. If we get more than what we want to interview. You know, if we get 6, we can change our mind and interview them all ourselves. But if we get a slew, I don't want to be sitting here in the second meeting in November trying to decide how we're going to deal with it.
Right. It doesn't mean that we'll have to have other people interview. If we have 6, then we may decide to. But if she's got 10, then she's going to know. I'm going to set these appointments up right now without waiting for us to be at their next meeting.
I'm fine with that. But I'd like, if there's 10, I'd like to see 4, minimum of 4 in front of us, not 2. If we can do 5, and if 15 apply, then we can still do 5.
If we have 10, I'll fall off my chair.
I will too. But you don't ever know who's interested until you put the question out there. I just want to be prepared.
It's true. No, I agree, Peter. And I think the cutoff at 5 is reasonable.
Turn Val and Fred.
Second.
And that's consensus. We don't need to vote on that one. Are you got enough, Valerie?
I think so.
All right, we're moving on. West Street Slope Repair Project, status update.
Yep, hopefully this can be quick. As I noted in my report, all the necessary access and financial agreements were received. After a site visit on a recent Monday morning, it was decided to shift the access road downstream a bit, which required some additional time to get permit clearance from the Corps of Engineers. And once that was obtained, that was the last hurdle that needed to be achieved or conquered. And the notice of award was issued to King's Construction. We're in the process now of getting that back and trying to arrange the date and time for a contract signing that would coincide with a pre-construction conference or pre-construction meeting. The contract signing would take about a half an hour. The pre-construction meeting would take about an hour probably to go through all the different details and protocols and to be able to have conversation with folks that have questions. So we haven't quite nailed that down. The earliest it could be would be this Thursday afternoon, but it could be Friday or it could be into Monday next week. The goal is to get started before November 1. King's Construction said, or King's Trucking said it would take 4 to 6 weeks once they get started.
When does this have to be completed by for funding?
The grant runs through December 31st, but Mike Lapointe from the NRCS said that if for some reason things drag on a little bit longer, whether it's weather or other decisions that get made, as long as it's started, that we would quite likely be able to get an extension.
I know that's the state for you.
Oh, this is federal. Federal.
Quite likely.
Yeah. Valerie, just like we're going to get 90% forgiveness on our water line.
Yeah. Could we get not even 9%?
Yeah.
Get 0. Valerie, there's no way you can. This project now is going on almost 2 years. Is say you get everything done by, I'm looking at a calendar here, by the middle to end of next week, and start on Monday the 25th of October. In 6 weeks will be December 3rd, Friday the 3rd. Get before so-called maybe any snow and bad weather. You get another week. This November 1st, you're into the 10th of December, maybe even the 17th of December.
You got holidays to deal with.
Yeah, you got a Thanksgiving in there. And you got Veterans Day off. So if there's any way to get this paperwork through and get started on Monday the 25th of October.
I mean, that's going to be up to their schedule.
Right.
Is there any reason why you can't have the signing and the pre-conference meeting the same?
It is the same day.
Same time, yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to make sure that as many property owners and other stakeholders and other interested folks that can and want to participate are aware of it and are invited to do it.
So she's hoping this Thursday for the signing.
The 14th?
Yeah. It's either Friday and possibly Monday. But yeah, so she's looking at this week. It's not next week.
Well, okay. Then I just was wondering why there was 2 weeks lapse then before the start date.
Probably because they're on another project somewhere.
Right. That's my guess.
Yeah, they have to get some equipment lined up. They have to acquire a particular piece of equipment that they haven't made the commitment to do without a signed contract yet.
Okay.
And they had a breakdown on the job they're on, so. All right. Everybody happy with that? Onward. Stony Hill Business Project update. Green Mountain Power Agreement for electrical services and installation.
So actually, the select board approved or authorized executing the agreement at the last meeting, and I received it this morning. And it's favorable. They did deduct the taxes, and it's signed. And Ian's going to sign it tomorrow. And the check is in tonight's warrant for it, $25,000 instead of 35 or 34. So the sooner we can get that to them, the better, because that's one of the next critical pieces for keeping this project on track. So that stuff needs to be installed before they can move on to other parts of the project. But otherwise, things are looking good and shaping up, and there haven't been any complications.
Knock on wood.
That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. Quite amazing.
Any other questions? All right. American Rescue Plan Act, funding update, discussion for potential projects. This is on here just as a placeholder so that the public knows we haven't forgot it. We still don't have enough information to move forward, unless you've got something different, Valerie, since we spoke.
We did receive an email from Katie Buckley from the VLCT letting folks know that the deadline to submit the project and expenditure report to the U.S. Treasury was extended from the end of this month, October 31st, to April 30th of 2022. So that's good news for everybody. That reporting does not mean that we need to have decided by then what to spend the money on. But for those communities that have decided or maybe have even begun to expend the money, then that would be the time when they would provide that kind of a status update. And they're also looking for metrics about if you have a project, what are your benchmarks for measuring success and timeline and things like that. So they just it's more of an information gathering procedure. But as this has been par for the course, more information will be provided at a later date.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, I'm curious as to what the process will be for folks to come and ask for some of those funds. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Turning Point Center of Addison County.
We've got some limitations about what we can and cannot use with it, so I'm not sure that there's going to be any availability to ask for funds. Do you?
Well, there'll be availability if it meets the criteria.
Right.
And we don't know. That's why this is just a placeholder, because we still don't know what the criteria is and what we can use this money on and what we can't.
Well, the list is actually fairly well developed. I think that one of the next steps that we need to make it, we started to make a list for the select board of important capital projects or other projects that have been on the select board's radar for a while. We want to share that with the public, but also solicit comments and suggestions from citizens, either about that list or other things to add to the list. And we've already been receiving a number of suggestions and requests from private citizens or organizations to be considered for some of that funding. So at some point, we're going to have a long list that will need to be prioritized. And we haven't really thought through the timing for that.
Now, aren't we limited to infrastructure?
No, it can be, there's a pretty broad range of what the funding can be used for. Whether the town has the capacity to follow some of those other program areas I don't know about that. Certain housing projects or support for businesses and other things.
Well, I don't know if the Turning Point Center, of course, is a nonprofit that supports people in recovery from addictions. And as you probably know, there have been a lot of overdose deaths in the state of Vermont as well as around the country. And some of those, a good share of those have been from relapses from people who are already in recovery. And so the Turning Point Center is doing everything that we can to help people stay in recovery, doing whatever is necessary to help them do that. So it sounds like what you're looking for is for somebody to write you a letter requesting that they be considered. Is that what the plan is here?
That certainly wouldn't hurt. I've received a number of emails with requests and suggestions. And okay. That's a helpful way for us to keep track of that. Okay. But yeah, at some point, we need to, one of the other reasons why we're still at this stage is because we keep being informed that more information will be made available and it's not there. So the information continues to evolve. And, okay. And plus there's other stuff going on. So, yeah.
Okay. Valerie, is the list longer of what it will cover, or could we have the list of what it doesn't cover? Is that list shorter? What things we can't even have on the list?
How about for the next meeting, depending on how things shake out with other things that are on our front burners, I will strive to share with you what we have so far for our the community list, which is both the select board and citizen input ideas, as well as an outline of what projects are eligible. And that could be a lengthy conversation.
Okay. Well, it could, because when I was reading it, I thought that there was all sorts of restrictions of what we could and could not do with it. So,
well, there's that too.
Right.
Well, I know that I was last week. I was in a briefing about these funds and how they might come through, and I was told that it can be edited at any time. So I'm just wondering how far down the path we want to get without knowing what the exact ramifications are going to be.
Right.
I mean, I think it's great to collect ideas in some way, shape, or form. I think that's not a bad idea, but we'll have to weed them out once the plan is finalized and voted on.
Okay.
All right. We got two other people that want to speak here. Linda, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to point out that what I know, it came from the Addison Independent, and it was Bristol considering ARPA fund choices, but it lists the 4 broad categories that it can be spent, and it talks about nonprofits. So it'd be nice to know, what percent of the funds you guys might want to spend on nonprofits. Also, the other comment I had is, I know people are giving you ideas, but it'd be nice to like open it up on Front Porch Forum, requesting ideas from everyone who hasn't really been thinking about it, because you might get some interesting ideas.
Thank you. Jessica.
I was just going to suggest the same thing that Linda did, which is that Ferrisburg is doing a broader survey, and they're trying to collect ideas because, you know, this is once in a generation funding. Like, this isn't our normal tax revenue. We probably aren't going to see that kind of infusion of capital into our community again. And so it would be really nice if we could collect ideas that maybe are out of the box thinking that would really change things. And so maybe we could get a copy of Ferrisburg's survey and sort of update it for our own purposes, but it would be really great if we could get broader town input. Thanks.
I guess my question to everybody is, and nobody always has the answer, but I'm going to throw it out there, is let's say in 4 or 5 years, all these funds have been spent and we send, I'm just going to throw numbers out, 20,000 to Turning Point and something more to home health and all that. And sorry about that. And then when the federal auditor comes in 5, 6 years and said, well, that didn't qualify, this didn't qualify, this didn't qualify, you guys, that's got to come out of your own pocket. But that's been gone for 4 or 5 years and spent by these organizations that maybe the federal auditor at the very end said they didn't qualify. Who comes up to pay that back?
I think it's on the town.
The town or the organization that we gave the money to?
It would have been a town decision.
Answer.
The one with the deepest pocket is going to be the town.
Right.
Not that we have the deepest pocket, but that is, my guess is.
Or do we put a caveat, if it's not covered, it must be paid back by the organization that we gave it to?
I don't know.
I don't know if we can even do that.
That's why we need to figure out what the criteria is way before we can make a decision.
Start promising money.
Right.
All right.
Right. I mean, VLCT has a lot of detail on their website regarding that. But I think it's just up to us. We have to be careful in terms of what projects we're looking at specifically. I think, you know, one of the first things to do is just probably, I'll work with Val to create a web page on the town of Bristol site, just sort of detailing some of the information that we already have. At least we have then a page that's up there that people can look at. And I think Jessica's idea of the survey is probably good. And I think part of that too is sort of, even though we could tackle it from a position of saying, here's what you can and can't do, because that's moving so much at this point, it's this moving target. I think it's probably best just to get suggestions from people and for us to sort of go through them and see if we can classify them and prioritize them in certain ways, even if certain things don't meet the qualifications that are needed. It's still something that might be interesting for a future project for the town to look at, or another group to look at. So I think having a broad survey is fine, because you'll have a lot of ideas come in either for these funds or perhaps future funds.
Sounds like a plan.
I have another question.
Sir.
There was a lawsuit against the drug companies that there was a lot of money that was going to be sent to every state. Do you know what the status of that is at this point?
I've reached out and have not heard back. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on?
I think Linda's has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. One of the things, there was a list in the Addison Independent of suggestions from you, Valerie, and one of them was the using the ARPA funds for the Pine Street water line replacement. Sounds like maybe that's already going to be paid for by some other mechanism. So just the things that are being recommended, maybe there are other sources that will pay for those, and we don't have to use the ARPA for that, but we can use it for other things.
Right.
Yeah, I think that some of it's going to boil down to that, you know, I think we're going to want to do stuff that helps the whole town. I'm not sure that water line infrastructure is something that the board is going to be willing to put a bunch of that money into, unless we have other places that we can't spend it. That's my thought anyway, because that only helps a small percentage of the townspeople.
But that said, if you have our water line versus a nonprofit out of town, that water line's probably going to take precedence over.
Yes.
Do we know how much money the town of Bristol will receive for ARPA?
Yes.
About 1.1 million total.
1 million?
1.1. That's
1.1.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
Right.
No further questions. We are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Review and approval of June 28th, July 12th, July 26th, August 9th, August 16th, August 23rd, September 13th, September 27th, and September 29th minutes. Which ones are ready and which ones are not?
Which ones did I
August 9th were already approved. And this afternoon I said, we already received Michelle's edits for the September 29th and the June 28th, September 27th. And was there another one? Anyway, September 27th and June 28th were sent out this afternoon.
So which ones are not approving, Jill? Valerie?
Which ones are we working on? Which ones are we approving tonight?
September 29th is the only one I got a chance to look at.
So we're only doing the 29th? Is that what I'm hearing?
Michelle, didn't you send me the 27th too?
Can't remember. I was trying to.
Yes, you did. You sent me the 27th too.
Okay. I was going to say, I couldn't remember if I sent you one or two. But when you said the August 9th, I was like, when did I do that one?
No, that one's already approved.
Okay.
So I knew I did two of them. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion we approve September 27th and September 29th with my minor changes.
Did you say June 28th was approved, Valerie?
No, she said she sent that out. I haven't looked at that one yet.
Yeah, she sent us that today.
You get a second?
I'll second.
All right. Further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Quick question. So we don't get behind like we've done before. I wondered if we could do them in date order. That way we remember them and then we're not forgetting what happened 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
I mean, like clean up July.
Like instead of just finishing September 27th and 29th, I know that you sent out June 28th, but maybe send out June 28th, July 12th, and July 26th to clean it up first. Clean up the older ones.
It all depends. That's a goal.
Okay.
All right. Authorize accounts payable, warrants, and liquor license. Do you have the total, Tasha?
I got the email. I'm just pulling it up now.
You got it was a revised one.
The 447,795.23.
That is correct. Select board roundtable. Michelle.
I want to thank the Department of Public Works for mowing the roadsides again. It was really nice pulling my driveway and be able to see down the road. And I want to ask Val, and this is in other business, the reprographics quotes that they sent us. I thought we had signed a 2-year contract with them already last year.
Well, I thought so too, but I don't seem to have a copy of it. And I'm pretty meticulous about keeping track of those things, but I'll double check with Sharon. I didn't have a chance before tonight, but yeah, I thought about that. Because if we did sign a 2-year agreement, then we're committed. I mean, we committed to that. The same thing would be if we did that this time around.
Right, and that's what I was thinking. And when I thought, we just did this last year, but maybe it was
could have been 2 years, you know.
Right. Yeah, I just want. That's all I
got. Ian.
Nothing for me.
Darla.
Nothing for me tonight.
Oh, just one little thing I see in here. We crushed $15,000 worth of gravel. Brought it from our Stony Hill property, Stony Hill pit to the town garage with not one tarp over it. Valerie, I want to know why the tarps were taken off the trucks. There's no tarps on the trucks, and those were bought 2 years. The tarps that cover the load. There were tarps put on those trucks a few years ago. Now they're off. Why were they taken off? That's all I got.
All right. I believe I am good. Valerie, you're up.
I don't have anything to add to my written report. However, I do want to point out that I reviewed the ordinance adoption requirements after the select board adopted the water ordinance the last meeting. And it turns out that the notice of adoption and a summary of what was approved and the document needed to be made available and posted within 14 days of the adoption. And given what the past 2 weeks have been like, that I did not have the bandwidth to do that, especially not being at the office. So my recommendation is to, at the next meeting, haven't had a chance to clean up the document either, to fill in the blanks and some of the other highlighted stuff and create a final document. So my recommendation is to, at the next meeting, have that final document, ratify it as an adoption, and then that starts the 14-day clock. And by then I'll have the notice teed up to go to the paper, and I'll probably be able to be at the office and help distribute it and post it and stuff like that.
Okay.
Sounds fine. So close.
Getting closer.
We're this close.
We'll get it.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds good, Valerie.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Other business, correspondence reports, correspondence received. Nothing?
The solar facility's coming along nicely. Looks like they've laid out a lot of their weighted bases or the metal framing, and they're starting to put up some of the actual racking, which is kind of neat. I was walking over there a couple days ago, so that's really fun to see.
Good. You bought in yet?
Oh yeah.
My business.
My 28 panels that won't even cover my full electricity uses in my stupid all electric house. But yeah, looking forward to having those there.
I want to point out the link and letter to the 5 town select boards that's listed for other business. It was addressed to the select board, but it was not listed as an agenda item because the town clerks in the respective towns seem to have already made the decision not to support a November election. So I don't
agree with them anyway.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I'm on board with that.
So I don't know if you need, if the select board feels a need to make a response of some sort. But
I don't see why we have to.
No.
Okay. Sounds good.
We have executive session?
Yes. Actually, we do, but do we need to, we don't need to do the same thing we did with the moderator. We want to set a schedule and a procedure to hire a treasurer. And I don't know that as long as we're not talking names, that's not an executive session item.
Okay.
So can we do that now?
I think so.
And I would, my suggestion would be to have probably one select board member and Valerie and Sharon do the preliminary interviews and bring us with 3 finalists.
Not Peter too.
Peter Ryan could too. Yes.
Those 4.
Yep, that sounds good.
And bring us, what do we want? 3 to do the final interviews? I just, I think that they're the people that have to work with whoever we hire. So it needs to work. And then from there, if they give us their 2 or 3 finalists, we can narrow it down to the person that, we're going to have to work with them as well, but not on a daily basis. So I think that works the best in my eyes for us.
I'm okay with that.
Yep, I'm fine with that too.
And Darla, you're the liaison, so I'm assuming you will be the select board member to do those interviews with them.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Either that or you're off a horse. Yeah. You can hear me from there, probably. I can hear something. Right? No, I sent an email earlier this week with some availability, and I can give you some dates farther out too. So I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Do we have a timeline? When was what was our due date for?
I didn't. It was open until filled, but the ads pretty much run out this week. Wednesday, it's in this week's 7 days, but it won't be renewed from the Wednesday edition, and it won't be renewed in the Addison Independent unless we choose to do that. But I did not, so it's just ran for 2 weeks. In the print, it's been all over on social media.
We have how many prospective applicants? 8. So we've got a pool to whittle down. And
yeah.
What do we want to set for? Do we want to wait till Friday? Give the last 2 ads a chance to run before we close it?
I would say so. I'd let the ads run.
I would think so too.
Mm-hmm.
That work for you, Valerie?
Yes.
Yeah. And with those 8, would you guys be able to do it in the next 2 to 3 weeks? You could interview all 8 of them?
Oh, I try to do it next week.
I just don't know schedules, whether people can get in. You can get them all in within that. I just didn't know.
Oh, you may get 8 more to come in this week,
right.
Or 8 more people.
Well, does it make sense to review the applications first, and
right
there might be some to eliminate from that, and then see who's available.
Yep.
Go through and evaluate and decide who you want to interview, and then.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we still do have a short executive session, so.
Okay. I make a motion we enter executive session to discuss personnel matters per 1 VSA section 313A3.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.